You are now listening to Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, the voice for the people. Join Richie alongside co-host property damage attorney Hans Kennon as they bring light to the taboo world of big insurance companies, exposing their tactics and fighting for justice. Hear stories from contractors across the state. Contractor Talk, here to protect homeowners and uncover the truth.
All right. Welcome to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, brought to you on this new, it's new to us, the station, 94.9 FM, 950 AM, The Answer. New to us, and now we're about maybe a month or so into the new station. Every Monday night, 7 p.m., we air local here in the Orlando area, and then we take it to the streaming places afterwards, any places you can stream from Spotify, iTunes, and we're also on YouTube. Visit us there, like us, become a follower there. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, and don't miss an episode. So I'm happy to be on this dial, the station here. It's a new station for us, outside of where we were previously, and maybe iHeartRadio and some others. Different network, different channel, same kind of focus. We are brought to you by the Restoration Association of Florida. It is a nonprofit association by contractors for contractors, and that really is, and it's really in with education to the homeowner, the folks that are listening right now that need the services of a reputable contractor. And if you're a contractor, we talk with you here on the show. We talk about regulation. We talk about the laws. We talk about how to contract with consumers that are consumer friendly. None of the members of the Restoration Association of Florida lien houses. They don't sue homeowners. They help homeowners out in their one time of need, which could be in that process of a property insurance loss, in which none of us really have any experience dealing with. I think it's once in every 10 years or once in a lifetime does somebody have to deal with a property damage loss after a catastrophe such as a hurricane or tornado or other types of storms that come through. Look at the wildfires there in California. Those type of unexpected instances happen, and none of us know how to deal with that unless you're in the industry. So the folks within our association specialize in this type of insurance-related losses. So if you do go to our website, check us out there, raflorida.org. You'll find that there are members there listed, and you can email us and ask us if you need a contractor, or ask us advice if you need a contractor in the area that specializes in this type of loss. We can help you there and kind of point you in the right direction. For the and for the members of our association, it's great to be in unison and to share together what works in this industry and what becomes the norm in insurance-related losses, billing, direction to pays, and we talk about how we can help the homeowner now. If, like, say, if they have mold, if they have water damage, and they're living in the home while they're waiting on the insurance to adjust and to appraise and then finally release a payment, the folks in our network are there for you when you need them, and they can help you get rid of the water damage and the mold and get you back to a safe place of living until the insurance proceeds come in. And so the laws have changed greatly in the state of Florida. It was a lot more consumer friendly until we had the fake crisis a few years ago, and then prices went through the roof. Also, they can put on a show and get, and of course, in the middle of this fake crisis, the insurance people clammed out about $100 million for our governor to run for the presidency. And obviously, you saw what happened with that. But now we're left with a governor that was overpaid and basically bribed to be able to get all the law changes, start from all the special sessions back in 2022 to the death nail in 2023, where they removed consumer or the prevailing party attorney's fees for consumers, not only in property damage losses, but all the way across the board. We're talking about in auto, we're talking about life, we're talking in every form of insurance in the state of Florida. They took away prevailing party attorney's fees. And you might think about that, it's like, oh, okay, that's just taking away money from attorneys' pockets, but no, that's the exact opposite. You're actually taking money out of a homeowner's pocket in their time of need. And I ran into John Morgan. I think I've told you this several times, and this was back in December. And he was talking about why, because that was a big question, right? Why is Morgan & Morgan not, wanting all these property losses where they were literally all over billboards and all that stuff? And he said, and of course I had to ask him that here from right from his mouth. And he said, you know what? The reason why is because I can't look a homeowner in the eye after they have a $10,000 dispute over their roof and I have to take 40% of that. I just don't feel right with that. And for that, I see that, right? I mean, if you're in a dispute against your insurer and they are wrong, why do you have to pay for it, right? I mean, if you're in a dispute over $10,000, you should get $10,000. Why should you, the consumer, have to pay for that when since 1893 we've had the law here in the state of Florida, a Supreme Court case law, basically David versus Goliath, allowing that insurance companies, if they're found wrong, they pay the attorney's fees and costs, and the homeowner is made whole. And so that brings up a couple of things. And I know Hans is over here mashing his keyboard, looking up some recent laws that are some bills that have been filed this year that hopes to change some of that and give some power back to the consumers. So we'll talk about that. And of course I mentioned water damage and mold and how we're able to put homeowners back into almost some sort of, I was going to say almost pre-loss condition, but at that point, at least a point where they're living in a safe environment. And that's by calling somebody that does this restoration for a living and is licensed in the state of Florida and really puts the consumers first. That's a great segue for me to introduce Frank with ADU Contractors. What's going on, Frank?
Hey, how are you?
Bring this closer to your mouth, man. There you go. A little bit closer. Good. Go. You see how I'm almost eating this thing? You got to get a little bit closer, and then you'll sound good.
It's my first time.
Nice. What's going on, Frank? How are you, man?
Everything is good.
Good. Yeah. Tell us about ADU and what you do specifically for the company and how you're able to help homeowners here in the state of Florida.
Right. So we're a full-blown restoration company. We do mold, fire, water. We do contents. I mean, we do duct cleanings. We do roof tarps. We do remodels, repairs. I mean, we pretty much do it all, man. We're kind of one-man stop. It's kind of how we like to proceed. We're for the homeowners. We're not preferred vendors. We try to stay away from that kind of work. I'm always for the homeowner. When I try to walk into a property, I literally try to take it from top to bottom and guide them through. Not a lot of people understand their policy that when they sign it, it's kind of like black and white. They don't understand it. We don't.
Who does? I mean, pages and pages of stuff that nobody reads through.
Right. What they think that they can't get covered. We in their best interests of saying, hey, listen, we'll take care of the actual mitigation side, and we'll guide you to basically precondition, like you said, condition loss. We try to make it as easy as possible. I think that's what makes us different.
Right. And what's great about that is, and I know exactly how you work, and what's great to the homeowner, a message to the homeowner is, I can get help now and I can get deferred billing or to where I can have a chance to submit this invoice to the insurance company instead of me coming out of pocket and hope I get reimbursed. So there is some delayed payment, so to speak, in a direction to pay that you offer. Is that right?
100%. So what we do is, if it's going through insurance, we'll have you sign a service or direction of pay, a service agreement where we're going to charge the insurance company after we do mitigation. So we will come and do mitigate, your home, get it to where it needs to be, and then we'll worry about the insurance company later. And that's kind of like when I walk in to a property, I try to basically put the homeowner's pain and kind of all their questions to at ease, and just kind of have us say, listen, we do this a lot, we do this a long time, and we'll take care of it, no problem.
Awesome. And that's important. I mean, especially after a loss, most people, I know myself included, don't save up for that one time of loss, and a freak storm comes over, and next thing you know, we're like, I'm not saving up for this, and now I have water in my house. How am I going to be able to afford this? If you have a policy of insurance, you can file a claim and then call a company like yourself, Frank, and quickly, within 30 seconds, how do we reach you if somebody does need you?
You call me right on my phone, 845-519-3901. It's the easiest way that you can call me.
One more time.
845-519-3901 is the easiest way you call me. That's my real number. You'll speak to a real person every time, and that'll be myself.
That's awesome. And Frank with ADU Contractors, we have more of this. Now we have some, I saw Hans over here tilt his head sideways. We have commercials, a couple commercial breaks here on the show on Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. So we'll get with on our sponsors, give some thanks to our sponsors. We'll be right back after the break. All right, and we're back. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Frank, put your headphones back on. We're back. All right, we're back to show 94.9 FM,
So
950 AM. And it is confusing now that we have some commercial breaks within here. But quick break with our sponsors and back to our show. Not only are we here on 94.9 FM, The Answer, and we're live every Monday night, but check us out on YouTube if you do want to check us out. And most of us have a face for radio. So, but if you're interested in Hans' Dapper Suit of the Week, you can always tune in here on the YouTube page. Annabelle is taking good video over here to maybe even zoom in on the Dapper Suit. Mind you, he will never wear the same suit. Again, here on the same, at least the same setup.
Right.
It's always it is always different, right? Last time I seen him, he was in a nicer suit.
What's going on, Hans? We missed you last week.
I'm like wearing a schmata here or something all of a sudden, as they would say up in this city. No, doing well. I was looking up some things we were talking about regarding some new legislation. And interesting enough, just the new legislation, one of the guys who filed it is the father of Matt Gaetz, who was reelected back into Senate this past year. I did not know he was. I think his name's Dan.
Wow.
Dan Gaetz. So when I saw that thing come up,
I didn't know the relation.
Yeah. Well, when they first came up, I didn't realize. I was like, how did Matt Gaetz run for Senate? He
that was quick.
But yeah, so it's his father. He was, after an 8-year absence, he came back. He says solely because the constituents came to him and said, "We're having a terrible time with the insurance market. We need help. Go back in and help us." And so that's what he said was his motivation to come back.
He won the seat. Now, who was the who filed it in the House? Is there already a House companion?
Yes, there is. And I
was curious, mostly because when I would talk to the incoming Speaker of the House, Danny Perez, he said most likely the bill that was going to bring some sort of version back of attorney's fees for the consumer was going to be carried as a committee-sponsored bill out of the banking and insurance.
Alex Andrade, A-N-D-R-A-D-E, a Republican out of Pensacola. Obviously, that's where Mr. Gaetz is from also.
Does it show what communities he's in?
No. I have an article just discussing the.
Gotcha.
I did have the bills themselves.
Yeah, because usually there's a lot of strategy on it. You know,
Sure.
if an unnamed, and I hate to say it like this, because every single senator and representative are doing the job for their constituents, and they'll be filing bills and such. But but honestly, the way that it goes, if you're not a very well liked and you're not on a lot of committees as a House member or a senator, or you're just crazy outvoted like they are now, Republicans versus Democrats. And I've said this before, if you look at this, round even numbers, the Senate is made up of 40 senators, right? There's like 120 or 140 in the House, so it's a lot easier looking at the senators. Now, prior to when I first got involved 10 years ago, it used to be 20 Republicans and 20 Democrats. It was right down the middle. And so at that point, you just had to turn. And I've always voted Republicans, but I'll knock on doors for a lot of the Democrats that help consumers to get it back to where they have a level playing field, and it seemed to be a lot of the Democrats on that, and then the Republicans, the smart ones, they're like, yeah, you're right. You know, Republicans are supposed to be for deregulation of government and small business, as 80% of our population are small business owners, right? I mean, all the businesses here are run by small business operators, and so that makes America what it is, right? It makes Florida what it is, and so. What we've heard, what we see now is that there's a big overthrow of power. Now you have 27 senators versus like 13 Democrats. So to try to find an even committee this year, next year, you're just not. It's just going to be whatever the Republicans want, right? So where I'm getting at is if you have a Republican that is on a bunch of these committees, our insurance bills usually go through banking, insurance, appropriations, rules, something like that. You know, it has to get referenced to at least, from what I understand, 3 committees, and then go through to the Senate president, and then the same thing goes through the House and goes to the Speaker of the House. Gets signed off on the same exact bill. The language has to be the same, and then it goes over to the governor for signature. So what that was a long description. A way to get there is that this year they're looking at bringing a bill back, and one of them that looks promising, that is filed by a Republican senator who is in, I think, appropriations and rules, not in banking insurance, but that means that there's some strategy involved, right? If you're on the committee, you have some pull in the committee. Not only are you a vote in getting that bill through, but you're also, you have you have some swag, man, because you're like, all right, man, I've got something you guys want. Let's do some trading. I'll put this bill through if you push my bill through in a different committee. So there's a lot of that stuff that goes behind the doors as well. Now, the first option that came up for the first bill that talks about attorney's fees is, I don't know the bill number. I think it's like Senate Bill 554 or something like that. But they're talking about bringing attorney's fees back for consumers who have a dispute in property damage. And let's say there's an indifference. They're going to mandate you to go, this is a proposed bill, they would mandate you to go to mediation. So mandatory mediation before you can file suit. 10-day demand letter, mediation, you go to litigation, and then if you win above 80% or above, then all of your attorney's fees for the consumer are paid, right? The plaintiff attorney's fees are paid. If it's between 20% and 80%, then you get your pro rata share of whatever that is. So if you get 50% of your pre-suit demand, if you file for $100,000 and you get 50, well, then now you get 50% of your attorney's fees awarded back to the consumer, hence the 50% of the plaintiff legal fees. So Hans, being the only attorney in the room, what do you think about that?
Well, as I say often, as they say in law school, they tell you two things you're always able to say. First is, I don't know. And the second is, it depends. And a lot of it's going to depend on that final language if this bill makes it through. I did look up Mr. Andrade's, who's the House rep. He is a Republican. So it's going to go up. It's a Republican House rep and a Republican senator bringing this bill forth. He is not, however, on any committees that we are terribly familiar with. He is on healthcare budget. He's the chair. He's on the budget committee. I'm not exactly sure what that is. I know it's not appropriations and it's not banking and insurance.
Right.
Health and Human Services, Joint Legislative Budget Commission, Natural Resources and Disaster Subcommittee. He's a lawyer out of Pensacola. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, so I didn't get. I was about to run Mr. Gates when we started chatting. I mean, certainly any relief to consumer is good. The question is whether it's a remedy with teeth. The problem we run into over the years, and you and I have seen it happen, where there will be legislation that's supposed to help the consumer, yet it's unable to be implemented or doesn't have any real teeth. It'll say, Mr. Insurer, you can't do this, and you're like, yeah. And then you realize once they pass it that you can't actually sue anybody for it, or you can't hold them to task. One of my favorite things ever is the insurance, just as an aside. When you get a policy, you get an insurance checklist. It has all the coverages, yes, no, it has everything on it. However, if it's wrong, by statute, you can't sue the insurer if it's wrong. And we talk about the policies, they're 50, 70, 80, 100 pages long. Only thing an insured might read is the coverage checklist. You know why? Because it's digestible, it's understandable, it tells you what you have, what you don't have. Right. And literally there's a statute that says, but if they get it wrong, now they got to do it right. They got to do it right. Got to do it right.
Right.
But if they don't do it right and you rely on that,
it's unenforceable.
It's unenforceable.
Oh my goodness.
So I mean that's an example of things that we see happen, which is amazing because they should really say, if anything else is missing, it doesn't matter. But if the checklist says it's on there, you got it. I mean, that's what it should be. And it's literally the inverse.
They should absolutely have liability on it. Just like an agent, if they don't sell you the right policy and do they have liability? You know?
And even that's very, very difficult these days. I do have one of those cases going right now, actually, for a house that burned down. I feel bad for people up in Volusia, where they sent a check in. The agent sent it to essentially like the wrong address, got it back, didn't submit it to the correct insurer in time. Policy cancels. Client doesn't know it. House burns down.
Oh my God!
And everybody's like, "Don't know nothing about your policy, man." So we're doing that. But as to the statute, again, right now it has more of a perception of relief than provides actual relief. Because under the statutory language, and this is where my wife would go, everyone's going to fall asleep when you start talking about this stuff. And I go, no, they'll find it riveting like I do, and everyone goes. Is that the statute as presented says if a judgment is entered, a judgment would require the client to go to trial, which many clients either don't want to do. It's potentially years from now. People need to get their house fixed. And if that were to hold up as written, the insurer, when making settlement offers, would make an offer just below 80%. Like they said, we'll pay you 79%. And if they pay 79%, the insurer doesn't actually pay any money. We just work off our contract.
Right. But in this way, if they get, like, say, 79%, then the insurer owes 79% of the
of the benefits. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's
the attorneys, reasonable attorney fees,
right?
Which I imagine reasonable will be litigated for years and years.
Yes. So it, again, it's meant to help. It's meant to provide some relief, and I'm not suggesting otherwise.
Right.
And I realize we're not going to go back to an era of what the legislature called one-way attorney's fees. What I would like, what I recommended to the FGA, was simply make it prevailing party.
That's right.
Otherwise known as loser pays.
Yeah, I love that direction.
Yeah, as opposed to these calculations, 80%, 75%, 20%.
Right.
People got calculators out for days trying to figure out what it actually means. You said, look, you know, if the insurer says, look, Hans, we're going to pay you, we're going to buy your guy's roof because it's what he needs, and that's the only thing he's looking for, they should pay you a fee on top of that.
I think so too.
If there's a ton of stuff that's damaged and they want to pay a little bit, then they pay a little bit, and we go forward on the rest.
If they are found to be wrong, they have an order that institutes that. But see, that's where I think mediation is going to get in the way, right? They're going to go to mediation if somebody settles in mediation at a low amount because they know it's going to take years and years for them to recover, so they take a low ball offer. That's another thing too, and that's what I'm hoping that won't happen in this case. And how that's relevant for Frank here is that how relevant for any service provider, including myself, is that if consumers have protection, then so do the service providers. Because let's say if you're a consumer, you don't get paid. Your your service providers that provided services on your home haven't gotten paid also. So to avoid a lien, you have to call Hans Kennon and at Kennon Law Firm, and they will then file suit. And guess what? They will protect all of the money for all the service providers and pay them out. And guess what? If he has attorney's fees added on that, that means Mrs. Smith, the consumer, gets the full amount of their discrepancy. Yep. Frank at ADU gets the full amount of his dry out and mold remediation invoice. So does each other service provider, right?
It does. Now, one thing about when you talked to John Morgan about, in fact, you didn't want to look at a consumer in the eye and say, I have to take a percentage from you. And that's the work that I did when I was at that law firm. It's the work I continue to do now. Is I'm not one to close the door. It's like Christmas Day, right? You close the door and you're looking outside and there's people outside. No, I'm sorry, you can't come in. And that's kind of what that is to me. For me, there's still value in what we can do for people. Mm-hmm. And even though it's I feel bad giving people half a loaf. You know what? When they showed up on my door, they had no loaf at all. Right. And so we're able to put people oftentimes back to where they were, return them to pre-loss condition. On a lot of these claims, we can work it out with the insurer and their contractor, where our fees and costs are rolled into the amount of the settlement. Everyone still gets the relief they need. The contractor still makes money. The insurer gets their home fixed. We get paid for our services. We really get that done about 90% of the time. When you exclude citizens, right. You should exclude citizens no matter what. Right. Especially from you taking them as an insurance company. Don't do it.
That's right. They are the masters of delay. And Frank, you gave out your phone number. You have a website and an email address. If there is somebody that is in a space right now, you need mold remediation, water, dry out, how do they reach you?
They can reach us on, we hand out flyers. We also have mailing flyers out, and also they can go on our website. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and we're also on Instagram. And I mean, 95% of the time, I'm going to answer that phone. Trust me.
That's awesome. What's the website?
The website is ADU Contractors.
Awesome. ADUcontractors.com. That's where you'll find Frank. All right, we'll take a break. Get some thanks to our sponsors. We'll be right back. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. All right, and we're back. Welcome back to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, 94.9 FM and 950 AM. The Answer, a new dial for us, about a month or so here. But find us on YouTube. You can find us. You can find us on YouTube, and every show that we've had is our archive there in our history, so you can check it out in video form. If you go to Spotify, iTunes, you can find us all of our shows there on the audio or all the previous streaming. God dang it. Can't even get it right either way. But we're streaming live on all those mechanisms there as we go. And then the history is there for every show that we have. So you can come back in about a week. And Frank, your show will be on Spotify. So you can go right on there. That's the one that I go to the most. I don't have iTunes or anything. So I pop on my phone. I go to Spotify. And a few days after we do this live recording, we'll be there. So you can go check that out. And also on our YouTube page. Like us, follow us, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. You can find all of our ways of contacting us through our website, contractortalkpodcast.com. And we are sponsored by the Restoration Association of Florida. Visit us there, www.raflorida.org. if you're a service provider in the area, like us and be a part of our events and become a member. You get lots of membership benefits by becoming a contractor under this association. Not only are we talking about the laws that are coming out within our events, we give out contracts that are specialized to this industry. Like we talked about, Frank, you mentioned that you have a service authorization contract, allows you to do work for the homeowner, and then a direction to pay that allows you to bill directly to the insurance company for the service you provide at the homeowner's place, and to dry them out and remove the mold, prevent mold growth from happening, and put them in a secure space while they're waiting for the money to come for the rebuild. And that's important because many folks don't have the money to get to that part, right? And then they're submitting estimates for the rebuild and waiting for the insurance company. That's important because if you're dealing with water damage, you're dealing with mold. Many of the clients that we've seen as an inspection company, we walk in and we see them, they're living in filth, they're living in mold, and there's nothing they can do about it because the insurance company hasn't either inspected or they haven't paid, or like what we saw in all of the articles after Helene and Milton, that we saw all of these homes with damage in the areas and the zones get wrongfully denied or paid under deductible. And in Citizens Insurance being the number one, I think about 77% of their hurricane claims were denied or paid under deductible.
Yep.
And then you have Snake Farm, and you have
50%.
At 50% right underneath that. I think Heritage. I don't have a cool one for that one
we
yet.
have All Snake.
That's right.
Which is actually Castle Key. They were at 48%.
Yeah, and you are not in good hands.
No,
they are
You're
not in good
you're
hands.
not in good hands at all.
No, not at all. You are if you want to get a 50-50 chance of getting denied after a hurricane hits your home. But that's not fair. That's literally why people in the state of Florida get insurance, right? So they can put themselves back to pre-loss condition after a storm or an event like a hurricane. Living in the state of Florida, I mean, it's like living in California without fire coverage, right? I mean, it's like it's not. I mean, and it's unfortunate that it happened, but they're prone to that, just like we are here in Florida for wind. And so when you're in Florida, you want a policy that covers wind. You want a policy that covers sewer backup. You want a policy that covers if you have water intrusion around your windows and doors, those types of things. In what we're seeing in the state of Florida, that our policies getting less and less coverage, and yet our policy premiums are going up and up. And so with that, and going back to kind of plugging the Restoration Association of Florida, we fight for you in Tallahassee. So becoming a member of us, you don't have to be a service provider. You can even be a consumer that is happy to be a part of an association, a nonprofit association that fights for your rights. We're up in Tallahassee every year. We're helping sponsor the right legislators to push forums that work for us. All right. I mean, we were instrumental in stopping a lot of the bills years prior and actually making some things fair, where we have an absent consumer advocate in Tallahassee. And I remember the one a few years back, she actually quit her job because they were not allowing her to protect consumers. And it's unfortunate because that's why they were hired to do that. But that office is literally sitting down the same hallway from Citizens insurance executives, sitting down the hallway from all of the folks over at OIR, and then the folks in the city or in Tallahassee that are hearing all of this crap, right? They're getting lobbied by the insurance companies that are there all the time. They're saying, oh, we're crying broke and we have all this and we need all of these premium raises, when they don't. And then, of course, there's a bill that was sponsored that we were trying to help them hold their feet to the fire. Senate Bill 76 included language that every insurance company would have to turn in all of their expenses from that prior year, and broken down to how much they pay plaintiff fees, how much they're paying in defense fees, how much they're paying on a denied claim, a non-denied claim, and that kind of stuff. And none of that came out. The next year, OIR gave them an extension. Office of Insurance Regulation gave all the insurance an extension. And then after that, all of the insurance companies said all of that was privileged, so they wouldn't give up that information. So we still don't know why they allowed all of these laws to change, because they were saying, oh, we're all these insurance companies are leaving the market and all that. That's not what's happening. These carriers were already leaving the market. That's because they were allowed to have Florida-based companies, so they didn't care. So like UPC, they left 91,000 policies in the state of Florida. They didn't care. They have policies in every other state that was more profitable, so they can just boom, cut their losses and go and make money everywhere else. And you'll see them enter the state of Florida again after the dust settles. I guarantee it. So, anyways, we went through a fake crisis. We all got our butts handed to us, and now here we are. Now finally realizing that insurance companies are not being forthcoming. They're not being transparent. And now we're hoping to see that our legislature will help us, the consumers, hold their feet to the fire and say, no, you owe us this full amount. And when we are found to be correct, you're going to pay our attorney's fees and costs. And that way you don't have to, Hans, take it out of the homeowner's pie when they need to put their roof back on.
It's funny, we already have a statute that does that, which doesn't work. Senator Gates's bill actually has a report that would detail compensation of each executive.
Oh, I love that part.
Salaries, benefits, stock options, bonuses, stock buybacks. And he says it's important because they're hiding all the money within these management companies and consultants. But a guy on behalf of the insurer says, hey, Office of Insurance Regulation already requires such reports. They just don't post them because they include proprietary information about companies' business strategies. So he says, we don't need another law because we get the information. We just don't tell anybody about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah, and that's great that they have that information that they'll never tell any of us. And that none of that will make it to the legislature or the legislators enable them to propose real legislation that's going to make some changes to help keep everything transparent, keep it to where it's even, and having homeowners being able to have their attorney's fees and costs paid by the insurer if they're found to be wrong is one of the big protections that is necessary for consumers in the state of Florida when dealing with their property insurance. Because as you've seen, and we just talked about, Citizens denying 77%, Snake Farm 50%, All Snake the same thing, 48% denials from hurricane events. Right. I mean, again, that's the reason why we have property insurance to being reimbursed for that, not to get denied, not to play dice and roulette to say, am I going to get covered? Am I not? I don't know. Is it worth it for us to have insurance when 50% of us are going to get denied after an event? It's not right.
Well, one thing about this article also where the gentleman said, we do collect the information, we just don't let anybody see it. He said the insurance commissioner is looking at every expenditure, every expense the insurance company has. The last insurance commissioner we had before the gentleman now left to become a lobbyist for the insurance industry. What was his name?
David Altmaier.
David Altmaier.
Yeah,
David Altmaier literally left his job as insurance commissioner early because of a new statute that would have prevented him from becoming a lobbyist. So he literally quit the job working for the state to become an insurance company lobbyist. But that's the guy that the insurance company says is looking at everyone's information, but he won't give it to anybody else.
Right. In the same Office of Insurance Regulation, that were giving away crazy increases to every insurance company, even ones that never filed for an increase, they were given increases to. They were given a letter, like Tower Hill, saying, here's a 50% increase. They're sitting up there like Oprah going, you get an increase, just giving it to everybody to create this fake crisis. So if everybody in the market started raising their prices through the roof, then that would become the norm, and that would become a crisis, and then we'd have to do something about it, and then let's make these law changes, and this will fix it. And what we saw, nothing happened to where it lowered rates. Now, and that's unfortunate, but now talking back on feeling protected, that'll get us back into business to help the consumers feel a little bit more confident into hiring you, Frank, to help them put back to pre-loss condition and get rid of the mold, water damage, and those types of things, and to feel like confident on being able to get paid, even if not now, but later on, you'll get your bill paid. You won't have a lien on their home. You'll be able to help them out. So Frank, quickly tell us about how we can reach you, your phone number, your website, and maybe even your email address, and what kind of work you do here in the Central Florida area.
Right. So like I said before, we're a full-blown restoration company. We do water, fire, molds. We do sewer backup cleanups. We do tarps. We do contents, duct cleanings. You can reach me at 845-519-3901. I've always answered my phone. I know my wife is probably listening and she hates that, but I always answer my phone for the reasons because you want to hear somebody, answer your call, right?
Absolutely. And ADUContractors.com is another place to get you in case you're listening. Jot down your phone number, ADUContractors.com. And thank you for being on our show tonight. And again, sponsored by the Restoration Association of Florida. Have a good night. We'll see you guys next week. See you. All right. Welcome back to the show. Look at that. We just switched it out and have a brand new show for you. So thanks for being back with us here after the break. 94.9 FM, 950 on the AM dial, The Answer. And live to you on every show, every week. We record for you live on Monday nights. And by the middle of the week, we have a new show for you out on all of our streaming sites, including our YouTube page, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. Find us on our website, contractortalkpodcast.com, and find us on social media as well, from Facebook to Instagram, everywhere you can stream, especially Spotify, iTunes. You can find our show there several days after we record it. Every single week we have a new show for you, some new contractors for you, some new stuff about what's going on and what to expect. Right now we have our Florida legislature is now warming up as they start to come back this March to put out new bills, and we'll see what gets voted through and signed by the governor to become enacted either upon signature of the governor or by July 1st. So we can have some things happening as early as this March all the way through July, in some big major changes. Like I was saying before the break, is that a lot of these consumers, if we didn't know how that would affect by taking attorney fees away from them, and you're like, well, I don't know, how does that really affect me? And until you're involved in a claim to where you have a dispute against your insurance company, let's say you're almost there, you're $10,000 away from getting your roof put back, and you put back to pre-loss condition. And not everybody I don't have $10,000 laying around to be able to put towards a new roof, especially when I wasn't expecting it. It's not like it was a maintenance thing and I was saving up for it. But no, your roof is in good working condition. A major storm or hurricane comes over, and now you're at this spot to where you need to get these estimates. You have to get this your roof approved so you can get stop the damage from getting worse. If you don't have a tight roof on your home, now you have water damage, you have mold. Now you're sitting there waiting for the insurance company to do the right thing. You can have health issues while you're waiting on it. Your property gets worse, and now you need more money to fix your home. And so what do? And so and what happens if you don't get that amount? And so that's how it becomes important. And that's when most people are going, okay, now I get it. Because if you're fighting for that $10,000, and when you finally, and Hans calls you and says, hey, I was able to file suit against your insurer. Unfortunately, we had to go that far, but I got you your full $10,000. And you're like, yes, that's great. And you're going to say, well, unfortunately, because of the law change that we just had in 2022, I have to take a certain portion of that, a percentage of that. And you're like, it's like almost,
which is sweet. Which is a shame, because it becomes anticlimactic. You're happy that you're getting a recovery, but then unfortunately, I can't do this for nothing. It's how I feed my family, like we all do. So it is unfortunate to have that conversation. I still tell people, I go, look, I spent 28 years not having this conversation with people, and now in my third year of going, well, yeah, it's still good, but it's not as good as it should have been. Had the governor not changed the statute and taken away those rights, because essentially he's put State Farm or Citizens on the same financial footing as every consumer. They're expected to have all the same amount of disposable money. They can just throw it at litigation, and trust me, Citizens will pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 to not pay a $10,000 bill all day. They got engineers and loss consultants and all these people.
I never got the understanding of that.
Right.
To pay more money because you didn't want to pay, help a homeowner out. I don't understand that at all. I never got that.
Right.
They'll literally take you to court and try to spend more money rather than that claim's even worth.
And then look to get a judgment against you. They're insured, their homeowner, if the homeowner doesn't win on a small claim.
Right.
That's wild. And that's why they're protecting their expenses, right? That's why the insurance companies don't want to turn over how much money they spend on denying claims, because they've done the math. That's one thing insurers are good at, and that is calculating money coming in, holding it as long as they can, and paying out as little as possible so they can grow their profits. And we don't see any of that until after an insurance company goes out of business in the state of Florida. The autopsy is done 6 months later.
Well, 6 years later sometimes.
Sometimes, right. The law says it's supposed to be 6 months, within 6 months. But after a carrier goes out, then the state gets involved and finds out the reasons why. And you'll find out there was an article that Hans and I both have read on the show many times where it talks about
Sunshine State Insurance Company.
Right. They were the biggest one that went out, and they were paying their executives, and on the way out, hundreds of thousands of dollars and stock payouts and all this other stuff. And it almost reminds me of UPC, but much more of a slick transaction where you see all the claims go over to FIGA and you see all the good policies go over and get bought by another insurance company. Everybody's making money except for us, the consumers, because we all pay a portion of that. We all get assessed. All of us policyholders get assessed to FIGA, and then FIGA pays all the claims. Florida Insurance Guarantee Association.
Yeah, typically on the bottom of your declaration sheet, almost the last line will have some amount for FIGA, a few dollars, maybe $20, $30, $40, $50, and everybody chips in that money to pay those claims when the insurers go out. And as Richie said, and we've certainly seen it, that many of the insurers simply, again, transfer the policies they want to keep to a subsidiary or to a sister or brother company, and then they throw the rest of them. They go, the rest of these aren't any good. And off they go to FIGA.
Or when they send you their preferred vendor, and he goes in there and screws it up, and he's on their side.
Right. I mean, and you know that's
boy,
and that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up, Frank. And guys, if you're listening to the show right now, you want to listen here and you want to get Frank's information, because I even have some friends that have some of these policies with managed care programs involved, like a People's Trust or something like that. They have a claim and they have to let their insurer provide that. I call all kinds of names. Preferred pretender. Preferred pretender comes out, and they do the least amount of work because they're getting paid really, really low, right, by the insurance company.
Unless it's People's Trust, because People's Trust owns the contracting company.
Right. So, which
you don't want.
Right.
You don't want somebody who's not going to go in there and have your best interests, but preferred vendors, they definitely do not. And what I like the most is when the insurance company says, oh, no, we're not going to pay that restoration company's bill because you're not using our preferred vendor. That's, it's scare tactics, but
it is.
Now the way it's going now, they're scaring homeowners so bad, and now homeowners kind of just want direct payments now. No, please just give me a direct payment because I don't want to deal with the hassle.
Right.
And it's kind of ruining the business, right?
Right. Well, and with that, though, because there are some policies where it's not mandatory that you use their preferred pretender, but they, would have to either institute some sort of interest in providing that within 30 days. Some policies are like that, to where if they invoke their right to repair within the first 30 days, then you have to let them. Outside of that, now, anyways, so my point is that if you have one of these, allow that third party to come out and then give you a call, Frank, because once they screw it up, then you can come in, fix all of their problems, and then still bill to the carrier, and the carrier will pay that. And I know Hans has many stories of contractors coming in after one of these managed care providers just muck up the whole house, and it has to get fixed. They will pay for it. And so my recommendation is, like I said, go ahead and let them come out, give you a call, Frank, and then just do that estimate of what's going to take to put them back, do some work, get that filed, or have the homeowner issue that for reimbursement back to the insurance company.
What we've done, I recommended to clients, and some of the Frank can help out with too, is if you have a managed care program, such as People's Trust, where they own the contractor, and also if you don't accept to use their contractor, you then have to accept basically half the money they would otherwise owe you. You get what's called an ACV payment. And people will sign that all the time, not knowing what it is, and then they release the insurer from any further obligation. However, if you have a People's Trust or someone who says, we're going to use our own vendor, what I will do is I will recommend to them that they call a contractor. And I said, look, I know it costs you money, but I would tell you, hire a construction manager for the week or whatever the time period is to go get your house fixed. Have that guy out there, have him take pictures, have him explain what's wrong. If there is something to be wrong, it's a tough job. But you need to hire somebody to make sure it's right, because if it's wrong and you have no documentation, you may not know it's wrong for a year, 2 years, 3 years, until something breaks loose, and you'll say, "Oh my God, it was those guys," and then you're gonna go back, because also under managed care programs, if you have a complaint, you have to make it in writing, essentially right after they're done.
Correct.
That's right.
And nobody knows. And if you don't have anybody there, like I said, even the bad roof's probably going to hold up for a little while.
Right.
Until it starts leaking water, and then you're like, oh, man.
Right.
And Frank, when and we say this all the time, is whenever somebody gets a claim on their home and they haven't dealt with this process, a homeowner is always told, go get 3 estimates, and it's like, oh
right.
man. So what do you say about
that? Right. So it puts you in a bad spot when you're already battling bids, right? So what I try to do is very simple. I try to ease them into, listen, all I need is your claim number, and I'm going to take care of the rest. I don't need you to worry about anything else. But at that point, you kind of have to play ball, right? You're going to have to give that estimate up. So
and how much do you charge for an estimate to the homeowner?
We don't charge. I do free inspection. Right. We do free inspections. I don't charge you to come out. That's for peanuts. We don't get for peanuts. We try to take care of the homeowner as best as we can. We have the best interest in when we show up to your house. We're not trying to get you for. I mean, what am I going to charge you anyway? $175, $275. I mean, who's me?
Right.
What are we talking about right now?
Yeah, no, and that's awesome because most people, especially after a storm, a major event, everybody's trying to get estimates.
Right.
So the chances that somebody's going to come by and give you a free estimate, especially try to get 3 of them for your roof and then interior, is just good luck.
I try to be the powerhouse, right?
Right. So you can give the estimate for all portions.
Right. I try to be the powerhouse that you're needing to be. Right. My boss always, my owner Ben, he always has a funny saying. Says, Frank, be the man. Right. You always got to be the man when you go somewhere. Right. So be that guy when you come in. Yes, I'll bring my roofer in. Don't worry about it. Frank, what about my ducts? I'll clean the ducts. Don't worry about it. Oh, what about the repair? Don't worry about it. I got my guy, right? You always need a guy. So I always tell people, especially I train marketing people all the time. I train branch managers all the time. And I tell them, be the guy, right? Because nobody wants 3 parties in their house because you can't do it all.
Right, exactly. And that's what frustrating is to most consumers are trying to get those 3 estimates, and that what it does is it lags and draws the claim out so long that it could be missing things like turning in a proof of loss.
100%.
Real quick, there's no obligation to get 3 estimates either.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. I mean, certainly be helpful, do what you can, but there's no policy provision in the state of Florida that says you have to have 3 estimates.
Homeowners need to understand that's your policy. You pay every month. You pay the premiums when it goes up. That's your policy. They can't tell you who you can use and what you can actually do. That's your home. Don't forget that's always your home.
That's right. Frank with ADU Contractors, aducontractors.com. Find him there. Hire him for your next need if you need it, or free estimate as well, especially if you have an insurance-related property loss. He'll be able to help you there. And again, we're sponsored here by the Restoration Association of Florida. Visit it, raflorida.org. Donate, like us today. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. See you.